14 years, and it's almost exclusively been connected to Haiti. Today's hearing will examine the security and foreign assistance priorities of the United States in Haiti, a country that is only some 700 miles from Florida. Haiti is a failed state in our hemisphere, currently under siege by armed gangs in Port-au-Prince that daily threaten the viability and legitimacy of the state. Security is a top priority for the country and is being provided by Haitian National Police, long supported by the U.S. The new gang supervision force approved by the UNSC and private security contractors hired by the government of Haiti, including Eric Prince. The FY26 bill also provides $5 million to bring Haitian armed forces into light. Humanitarian and development assistance remain paramount. 6 million people are estimated to be in need of assistance. 63% of the state-run inpatient healthcare facilities in Port-au-Prince are closed, destroyed, or operating at partial capacity. Minors make up half of all the gang members in Haiti, and nearly 1.4 million people have been displaced. The Achilles heel in Haiti remains the actions and orientation of the political elite in Haiti. Rampant corruption and the need for scheduled and hold national elections, a challenging task for Haiti under any circumstances, even more so during what could be called an insurgency. Thank you again to the Ambassador and to Mr. Holmes for participating today. We'll have, and I want to thank Ranking Member Schatz, who is also a very good friend of mine, for being here. We will allow Ranking Member to have open remarks, and then we'll allow all members to have 5 minutes, rounds of questioning and answers. If we need to go a second round, we will.
Thank you, Senator Mullen. And thanks to our witnesses for being here today. This is our first hearing since we passed the FY26 SFOPS appropriations bill. The bill and this hearing are proof that there remains bipartisan support for working together to deploy foreign assistance and strengthen United States foreign policy. This committee has long supported assistance to Haiti. We do so not as an act of charity, but because it is in our own interest. The FY26 appropriations bill directs funding for security and development assistance to Haiti. It also includes support for the UN's work in Haiti. It also, because while it's easy for some people to trash the UN, when it comes to managing complex challenges like Haiti or Gaza and making sure that the United States doesn't foot the entire bill, it is a critical partner for burden sharing. And I think the administration is starting to recognize that. Now, while it's true that U.S. assistance has saved many lives in Haiti, there have also been major challenges in its effectiveness. And that's true across multiple administrations. We can and should discuss the relative effectiveness of past programs, but it's clear that simply terminating most of those programs is not the right solution either. It also doesn't make sense to spend money to terminate those programs instead of figuring out a better way to use those funds and save lives and advance our interests. One final point. The political and security situation in Haiti continues to deteriorate, and there remains a risk of complete government collapse. And so it is disturbing and counterproductive that it took a court order to pause the termination of TPS for Haitians. I look forward to the hearing and learning how the subcommittee can support the United States' effort to stabilize Haiti, save lives, and protect our interests.
Recognized for 5 minutes. It's your opening statement.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mullins, Ranking Member Schatz, distinguished members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about, of course, Haiti. The U.S. objective in Haiti is, one word, stability. We define that as A, no collapse of the state, and B, no mass illegal migration onto U.S. shores. Everything we do to implement the President's Haiti policy is anchored to that singular objective, stability. Today, I'll share 3 updates from the field. First, I will explain how we are countering Haiti's major destabilizers. Second, I will detail U.S. efforts to support the deployment of a new UN-authorized international force. Lastly, I'll report on U.S. government investments, as well as emerging opportunities to advance U.S. interests and those of Haiti's neighbors in the region. First, let's establish a common operating picture. Haiti is a nettlesome foreign policy problem. Chronic political, economic, and governance dysfunction hinder stability. Yet, setting security conditions that can put Haiti on a path toward baseline stability is an achievable foreign policy objective. The immediate threat to Haiti's state survival is a coalition of some 20 armed, hostile organizations, misleadingly called gangs, that, as the Secretary of State mentioned in his 28 January testimony to Senate Foreign Relations, threaten systemic collapse. In 2025, the United States designated two of these gangs, Vivre Ensemble and Grand Griffe, as foreign terrorist organizations, more commonly known to everybody as FTOs, and they are now operating as proto-insurgent movements. The size of the gang population is around 12,000, of which approximately 3,000 pose the greatest threat. By contrast, the Haitian National Police, or HNP, have approximately 6,000 personnel on the books, of whom maximally, and I'll say this one more time because it's important to note it, maximally 400 do most of the fighting. Good governance, we all know, is essential for stability. It's been a decade since Haiti's last elections and 5 years since President Jovenel Moïse's assassination. Successive unelected transitional authorities have failed to deliver elections. The latest experiment, a 9-member Transitional Presidential Council, or TPC, concluded only 72 hours ago when their mandate expired. Laurent Saint-Cyr, the final chairman of the TPC, and Prime Minister Alex Didier Fils-Aimé have been indispensable partners in advancing our shared interests to prevent state collapse. Under Saint-Cyr's leadership, the Council approved a decree setting elections for 2026. Our policy objective of stability will set conditions to help Haiti have an elected government. Haiti's gangs thrive on necessity, not ideology. With 7 consecutive years of economic contraction and more than 1.4 million people displaced, many younger generations view gangs as the only reliable source of income. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, over 34% of Haitian children aged 5 to 14 are forced to work, including for gangs. Haiti must create job opportunities to outcompete gangs for the long term. Congress's reauthorization of Hope Help trade preference programs is vital for ensuring continuity of Haiti's textile and apparel industry. Last September, U.S. diplomacy led to the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 2793. It authorizes 5,500 uniformed military and police personnel to conduct intelligence-led, targeted counter-gang operations. The United States coordinates generation of the GSF as chair of the Standing Group of Partners. 15 countries pledged over 11,000 personnel for the GSF, the Gang Suppression Force. And last week, the Standing Group of Partners approved the slate of 5,500 personnel culled from that 11,000 number. The first units deploy in April. Clearing operations commence in May. The suppression force will work from day one to put itself out of business as Haiti builds its own security and the state reasserts authority. Thanks to funds appropriated by Congress, State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement, better known as INL, is transforming Haiti's capacity to fend for itself. INL's P4000 initiative is boosting the HNP by 4,000 officers in 16 months. We also appreciate Congress's authorization of non-lethal support for Haiti's military, the FAD. A trained, equipped, and modernized FAD is vital for Haiti's sustained security and reconstruction. Security gains will be fleeting without improved economic conditions to sustain Haitian society. And economic and security progress will be sustainable only when Haiti has a government that is chosen by and beholden to its people. Haiti's problems are grave, but progress is achievable as we counter the destabilizers, deploy a military coalition through the UN, and invest strategically to enable Haiti to regain capacity to secure its own homeland and people, benefiting U.S. interests and the region. Thank you.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Senator Mullen, Ranking Member Schatz, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I returned from Haiti just last week. The country is central to my life and has been for the better part of 2 decades. I lived in Haiti with my family, led Haitian teams of nearly 900 staff, and coordinated humanitarian and disaster operations with the U.S. government following every major crisis since 2010. In recent years, my work has expanded into leading kidnapping recovery operations and emergency extractions under the harshest conditions. One individual, Jeff Frazier, who we successfully recovered, is seated in the gallery today. The results we've achieved in Haiti are driven by an approach that many international efforts have struggled to sustain: deep cultural fluency, long-term presence, and operational leadership rooted in local context. Our teams are largely Haitian and Haitian American, with in-country experience, language capability, and local relationships that inform every decision that we make. These competencies have allowed us to continue operating even as conditions have deteriorated. However, the scale and trajectory of Haiti's current crisis have exceeded what any non-governmental coalition, no matter how capable, can mitigate without durable support from the U.S. Congress. Haiti is experiencing systemic collapse, as stated. One of the country's 11 million people, roughly 5.9 million, are facing acute food insecurity. Armed groups now exert influence over an estimated 90% of Port-au-Prince, with violence spreading into additional regions throughout the country. Between January and September of 2025 alone, criminal groups murdered more than 6,700 people, carried out 491 kidnappings, and committed 1,270 incidents of sexual and gender-based violence. Internal displacement doubled last year to 1.4 million people, including more than 500,000 children. These are reported figures, and the true scale we know is likely much higher. At the center of this crisis is one fundamental obstacle: security. Aid cannot move, food cannot reach children, clinics cannot function, schools cannot operate. Without freedom of movement, humanitarian response cannot succeed. All of this is unfolding, stated less than 700 miles from the Florida coast. And in the absence of effective governance, transnational criminal networks have established increasingly sophisticated pipelines for trafficking narcotics, illicit finance, weapons, and ammunition into and out of Haiti. The continued collapse of the Haitian state represents not only a humanitarian catastrophe, but a direct and growing threat to U.S. national security and regional stability. Since the early 1990s, Haiti has been the subject of repeated international security interventions involving tens of thousands of foreign troops and billions of U.S. dollars. This includes a 25,000-person led U.S. force in 1994, a 10,000-person UN stabilization mission from 2004 to 2017, and the more recent MSS Kenyan-led mission of 1,400 personnel. Despite this scale, duration, and cost, Haiti today faces its most dire security and humanitarian collapse in decades. The lesson is not that engagement is futile, but that security and humanitarian response cannot be treated as separate problems. Stabilization must create the conditions for aid to move, services to function, and institutions to recover. Civil society will continue to act where it can, but today insecurity is the binding constraint. Even when humanitarian supplies exist, armed groups block roads, seize shipments, and extort convoys. Without secure access, aid cannot reach the people it's intended to serve. Security is the #1 humanitarian issue. My partners and I work alongside a coalition of more than 500 local organizations. Over the past decade, we have built the infrastructure necessary to establish secure humanitarian corridors as a first step toward stabilization. That infrastructure supports a 4-phase framework that scales with conditions on the ground. First, securing humanitarian corridors for safe aid delivery. Second, activating emergency food, water, and medical distribution through those corridors. Third, restoring essential services and supporting local economic recovery. And fourth, transitioning operations to Haitian leaders, Haitian institutions, Haitian organizations. This approach deploys initially from areas of relative stability and advances towards Port-au-Prince as conditions permit, reinforcing and expanding Haitian-led security and service capacity rather than displacing it. Working together, I believe we can develop a humanitarian corridor that mitigates crisis and decreases the eventual cost to American taxpayers and American security. The framework for scalable execution exists. With this subcommittee's support, we can secure, stabilize, and sustain hope for Haiti. Thank you. I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Does either one of you guys have to leave early? If you do, I can. Okay, then let's go ahead and just go through this. Thank you once again for both of you guys, the testimony. I just want to start with a question for both. How do we fix it?
So as you heard so eloquently and forcefully, and I can only agree with it from Austin, security is the paramount issue. Everything is going to proceed from that first principle. That's, if you will, the prime mover. And in fact, let me be very blunt. If we don't have security, the other issues that we might be able to talk about today are material. They're materially relevant only in the sense that they are academic concerns. Because if we don't have the security, if that's not established, nothing else can flow in the rest of the country. That is, to put a finer point on it, the keystone in the arch. And that is what U.S. policy is aimed at. That is the paramount, that is the sine qua non of what we are doing, security and stability. Over.
As discussed with the gang suppression force, there are two fundamental obstacles I think that must be addressed: corruption and a stabilizing function on the other side that looks like a Haitian institutional security solution. Outside of those two things, the endemic corruption and an enduring and durable Haitian security solution, we risk making the same mistakes that we've seen for the last 40 years. Is significant and absolutely critical to meeting the basic needs that you're seeing. As shared, there are 500,000 children that are displaced right now. And so we believe that pairing the humanitarian and the security together brings a significant and enduring stabilization function to the people of Haiti.
If the gang suppression force is fully intact, what's different from the previous force that's been put in place? What makes us convinced that this is going to work if in the past they haven't been able to provide security for themselves?
The humanitarian corridor model allows us to partner with Haitian forces, but through the use of PMCs to inject security.
Partner with private forces or with U.S.
Haitian
military?
National Police and the FAD, as the ambassador mentioned.
Roadways that would enable the passage of commerce, of human beings, of humanitarian aid. And number three, enhance the capabilities of the security forces of Haiti. So establishing the security of major routes, that is an objective, a key objective of the GSF, of the Gang Suppression Force. Not humanitarian corridors per se, but just they are functionally one and the same. But again, the mission set is not humanitarian corridors. It's these lines of communication, the major highways.
And who is holding the UN force accountable? Who's overseeing them?
They are being overseen by a standing group of partners. So it's 6 nations, including us. We chair it. There are 6 nations that are in effect. Think of a board of directors, because that's who they report to. They report, a military commander reports up through a civilian special representative. And it's crucial here to underscore that SR, that special representative, is not a special representative to the Secretary General. This is not a peacekeeping operation. They report to that board of directors.
Austin?
Yes, sir. I believe that the risk that we're discussing with the gang suppression force is most of the gang activity that we're discussing is around the greater Port-au-Prince area. They've also expanded into 4 of the other 10 departments of Haiti in total. So we're talking about a 5,500-man force, augmenting a 6,000-man force with the police, as Ambassador Wooster has shared. Comparable illustrations are New York City and the Dominican Republic, both of roughly equivalent population sizes, with 36 to 50,000 force armies and police. Sir, to think that 5,500 plussing up to 6,000 is going to solve a countrywide issue that's 36 times the size of New York City, I believe is unrealistic. And so what we're proposing today is additional security augmenting humanitarian corridors to stabilize these other regions so that we don't have the instability of Port-au-Prince spreading to the outlying regions. And so, we look at the UN forces that were there from 2004 to 2017, the legacy for most Haitians is not positive. It's one of cholera outbreaks and sexual abuse. It was viewed as a foreign invasion. I think what's important here for all of us is that Haitians are seen leading their security initiative. If we are left here without a 35 to 50,000 man force in country, I don't believe there's any hope of sustained security in Haiti. We have the last 40 years that point to that. And so what we're proposing is a dual framework in addition to the gang suppression force to augment, train, and to leave behind Haitian
On the GSF, what's the end state in terms of the number in the force? 6,000 or 6,000 plus 6,000?
You mean the number of troops in the force? 5,500 troops, and then a civilian representative with a civilian staff of 50. So troops, 5,500.
Okay, and where are we now on that number?
We have the numbers from 11 countries, and over 11,000 people were pledged, 11,000 troops, excuse me. We culled that list down to get the 5,500 that we want. The first units will deploy on 1 April.
And I assume on a rolling basis until you get to your 5,500, and what is that, months or years?
Yeah, it's months.
Okay.
So you're going to need to reach initial operating capability 1 April, and then you're going to go to full operational capability by September.
Okay, and Mr. Holmes, your sort of vision, which has a logic to it, is, Haiti's going to have to govern itself, and a bunch of foreign country troops may help to stabilize the situation, but is not a long-term solution. So I'm assuming, as you imagine this dual track, that this can work, and then in the meantime, you're providing resources and doing training and best practices and all the rest, because you can't get a force of in the tens of thousands. That actually does take years, does it not? Okay, so my basic question is, this is already hard, right? Then what? Because I accept the premise that development assistance, humanitarian assistance, global health, all the good things that the United States tries to accomplish that are in our interests, none of it can work if you have everybody absconding with stuff and all the rest of it. But a bunch of those programs were turned off abruptly. And I'm trying to figure out, in your mind's eye, we're 18 months from now and things are starting to look more stable and like we can distribute aid. What is it, Ambassador, that we would need to turn back on, over what period of time, which programs were effective, which should be thrown in the trash can? Give us a vision from the more narrow view of this committee. What should we be funding if the security system permits us to distribute the kind of aid that has been shown to be effective elsewhere?
Senator, on the matter of aid, it's important for all of us to bear in mind that notwithstanding cuts that have been made in aid programs worldwide, without exception and here by orders of magnitude, the United States remains the #1 without any competitor, without any peer. We remain the #1 donor and assistance provider to Haiti. That's a crucial thing to bear in mind. In terms of the end state, stability is the end state, but guns and the police or any of these other folks won't win it at the end of the day. When they go quiet, we must have an economy in place. There must be at least subsistence, and people will have to believe that they can, in fact, put shoes on the baby's feet and food on the table and something over their head. If they don't believe that that is attainable and possible, we're back to square one, whether people decide to get in boats or go to gangs.
So I love what you said. It's something like what I would say. But let me be a little technocratic. Programmatically, what does that look like?
Programmatically, it looks less like you and more like the private sector. It looks less like you and more like public and private partnerships.
I'm not trying to have a adversarial back and forth. I'm asking which lines of funding, which programs that exist under our SFOPS bill we should be looking to plus up or emphasize or encourage the administration to turn back on over time.
Yes, Senator, I see us aligned here in an agreement. I'm sorry if I've misunderstood you. INCL would probably be one of the ones that I would dwell on a bit because we're going to need to sustain the organizations and the entities and the variables that can provide that security. Right now, in the current context, that is exactly what you have been doing. HNP INCL, INL funding, and also what you did with, or rather, lifting the prohibitions for FOD.
Thank you.
Senator Bozeman.
Thank you all for being here very, very much. This is so important. I just want to follow up. As chair of the Ag Committee, the Food for Peace is being pushed over to the Department of Agriculture now. And they have teamed up with the World Food Program to purchase 211,000 metric tons of commodities from U.S. farmers. This will be sent to 7 countries, including Haiti. And Senator Schatz really asked the question I was going to ask about food insecurity, you know, how that plays out, and then also its relationship to gangs. You know, if you're hungry, if you can't take care of your family, everything else is pretty unimportant. And then bad people step in to give you somewhat hope. This is going to be done through the World Food Program, teaming up with them. So can you add anything else to that regards to, you know, again, it's so difficult without security to make that happen, which, you know, is the #1 priority to.
Thank you, Senator Bozeman, for that question. With respect to the World Food Program, I think a frequent oversight when looking at Haiti at 2 levels. #1, that there are many Haitian capabilities in place that are not brought within the purview nor utilized. What exists today with the organization, so we've formed a coalition, and appropriate framing would be a public-private partnership model that I'm proposing to you today with these humanitarian corridors, brings actors who have been working and privately funded throughout the last 7 years. An example of that would be Mission of Hope, who's feeding 130,000 children every single day right now, and has expanded and added 30,000 to that, and that's through 630 program centers across the country of Haiti,
Right.
in the middle of these circumstances. Additional groups like Food for the Poor, Samaritan's Purse, Feed My Starving Children have outstanding reputations globally for their work. And we're representing that coalition, I'm representing that coalition here today with a public-private partnership model that frankly can be far more cost-effective in its response and its capability because it has far deeper cultural understanding of Haiti. It's far more adaptable, and it should absolutely be held accountable to defined outcomes, and I will willingly submit to any and all oversight and reporting standards that this committee were to request. But I believe that there's a model, sir, that's far more effective than we've currently been using, and I think we have the opportunity to deploy that and to scale it. It's already working. I'm not asking to create anything that doesn't exist already. I'm inviting y'all to expand it.
Yeah. Well, I assume World Food Program will work through some of those organizations, and one of the mandates is to reduce these countries' long-term reliance on international assistance. So provide food, but also again working through the organizations that you talked about, who do a tremendous job with so little resources.
Yes, thank you, Senator. You know, another example of that we'd like to work on with you is, and we saw more than 40% of the meals that were in that distribution network of 100,000 in 2019 were procured and packaged in country. They were on a path to sustainability. Haitians would prefer to grow their own stuff, and this is a great opportunity to build domestic food security that's in the interest of the U.S. as well as Haiti. And so I just don't want to see us move backwards on that more than we already have. And I want to make sure that this committee is aware of those mechanisms because they can be used now. Very
good. I just want to echo Senator Mullins' concern about the peacekeeping force. In the past, we give money to these countries and they pocket a bunch of it and give a little bit to the soldiers that are there, and they wind up foraging for themselves, to make it. And whatever we do, we need to make sure that those people are behave, and adequately resourced. And I don't know how you do that through a committee, but we do have to. That is imperative. The last thing we want to do is be part of a group, and this has happened so many times, where essentially the peacekeeping force is preying on the population. And that's something that's really important. So can you talk a little bit, can you expound on the committee, how they're going to do that?
Yes, gladly, Senator. Thanks for that question. Fundamentally through two mechanisms. So pathways are screening and pathways are vetting. On the screening sense, in terms of the forces who are coming to be part of the GSF, or those that we are bringing together, we have self-screening. That's required in accordance with, mind you, another important thing to note here is, I need to step back a second, this is not a peacekeeping operation. Just important to note that doctrinal difference, certainly when we talk about any of these forces, and particularly in the UN context. We have self-screening that these countries must perform before they can declare that their troops are ready to deploy. And they have to follow, although this is not a PKO standard for pre-deployment training, PDT. Additionally, when they arrive in country, they're going to go through a 2+ week induction. This is just a bloated word that simply says they'll spend 2 weeks once they hit the ground getting refresher training, reviewing all the things, all the standards they had to meet before they deployed. The idea here is this is real. Vetting. We will conduct human rights due diligence. That is conducted by UN standards. That applies to organizations. Say a battalion from a given country is deploying and it had been noted to have been involved in one or another atrocity or gross violation of human rights, it cannot deploy. And then you have U.S. Leahy vetting. Everybody in this conversation is familiar with it, but this takes us away from units and down to individuals. And provided the United States government has any record whatsoever, classified or unclassified, about a person and their participation or an allegation of their participation in an activity like this. So again, two pathways, vetting and screening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Bozeman. Senator Shaheen.
Thank you both for being here. Mr. Holmes, you talked about, and I think you may have referenced this too, Ambassador, in your remarks, the gender violence against women and girls. The majority of internally displaced people in Haiti are women and girls. Can you speak to the humanitarian efforts that are focused on women and girls?
Senator Shaheen, thanks for your attention in this matter. So I think an understated consequence is being paid by women and females throughout the country. More recently, we've seen gangs using something called community rapes, where in an effort to terrorize entire communities, they'll systematically rape every female in that community. In October, we saw 42 murdered as a part of that, many former staff members from my team. And so women play such a critical part in not just the protection mechanisms here, but in the leadership coming out on the other side of it. And so what we are proposing in the humanitarian piece is that should be a measurable and defined metric that we're reporting on consistently throughout it. If we aren't measuring it and reporting on it, we shouldn't expect it to be managed accordingly.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, because we do have a law that Congress passed during the first Trump administration called Women, Peace, and Security that mandates that in conflict zones like this, that women should be at the table in leadership roles. Can you, Ambassador, speak to what we're doing to ensure that women are included in decision-making with respect to what happens in Haiti?
Senator, let me make a first point, if I might, about the importance that you just heard stressed from Austin. The fact is that, yes, what we see is this heinous activity. It's been well chronicled, well reported. And I would stress once again, this is precisely why the paramount concern of our policy is attaining security and stability. In terms of women in various roles in government, we work with the Prime Minister and his cabinet before we had another configuration until 72 hours ago. We are continuing our conversations with this Prime Minister and his cabinet. The achievement that they're looking for is they want to bring Haiti into an era where it can be, in fact, representative of its people. I don't want to overstate this and put this into glowing Jeffersonian terms. That is not what is going to be happening in the immediate future. But I do want to say that these conversations, all of us, they and we, are eyes wide open to how they look will matter and who brings what skills to bear in terms of dealing with a society that is not exclusively male.
Well, put that in terms that my constituents can understand, that is not diplomatic speak. Because I would point out, and I know you both know this, that societies that empower women tend to be more stable. Women contribute more to their communities, to their countries generally than men do in terms of monetary contributions as well as volunteer. So say that again in language that is street speak that people will understand.
Senator, women already run a lot of Haitian society. They run a lot of the commerce, and they run a lot of the institutions. I don't mean merely in the household behind closed doors. That's already taking place. That's a longer conversation about sociology and who are Haitian people, but that's already built into the warp and woof of a lot, with exception to the armed forces. I don't think we can say that that's true there right now, and not in the Haitian National Police. That's not true there right now.
And so what are we doing to encourage inclusion of women in the decision-making? You talked about the current state of governance affairs based on the resignation of the council just 72 hours ago. So how do we see that playing out? What are we doing to try and ensure that there is a stable governance piece along with the security piece?
One of the key problems in Haiti, not unique to Haiti, by the way, has been the fact that they have a government that's out of touch with, they have had a government that was out of touch with its people and out of touch with a lot of other things. I would like to think that the fact that the points you're observing, the issues of women in society, all the variables that you've noted, I know for a fact that the Prime Minister is awake to that. I'm citing him because he is the head of government now. We don't have a separate head of state. I can't walk you through the particulars of his cabinet yet. That is in the process of changing. But I can assure you that the U.S. Embassy on the ground, we are in regular conversation with them multiple times a day about any number of issues. They are, like all governments I've dealt with throughout my career, enormously sensitive to how they are perceived in Washington, and emphatically so right here inside the U.S. Congress. It matters to them enormously. They are watching this testimony. They will be parsing every word of it. And so your questions have communicated volumes already.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Murphy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here. Ambassador, good to see you again. I noted in either your testimony or your early answers the relatively small number within the HMP that are really doing the day-to-day work, which makes the recent disclosure that there are several hundred private military contractor personnel from a company called Vectis, owned by a Trump affiliate, a Trump ally, Eric Prince, apparently in the country today. We have been pretty careful about having American private military contractors in conflict zones, American mercenaries. I just want to ask you, what do you understand right now is the role of this particular company, Vectis? What are these 200 personnel doing? What level of coordination do you have with them? And are there other companies on the ground other than Vectis, private military companies, that are being contracted by the police force or by the Haitian government?
Senator, it's important in the case of the PMC, the private military contractors on the ground, that we all understand the same framework, and that is that that contract is between the Haitian government and between them and the private military contractor. The monies, the revenues being used to pay for it are Haitian revenues. The point is, this is a decision the Haitian government made. This is not a U.S. contract. I just want to make that crystal clear at the outset. In terms of what they do, they have been, I think everyone is aware because there's been a lot of coverage of it, of the so-called kamikaze drones, the point being drones with ordnance. They have been also providing a lot of comparative advantages in this fight, primarily the ability to fight at night, and also bringing in experienced fighters who have done this, either anti-gang in other countries or special operations personnel from allied countries. The point being they're experienced military personnel. And that's where we need to understand that what's going on in the ground is not analogous to what we saw, say, with Mayor Giuliani in New York in the late 80s, where there was a gang problem, and the idea was, let's fix cracked glass and hand out more jaywalking tickets. We have full-scale urban warfare going on. And so what the PMCs have been doing is bringing in people who have experience in precisely that element, which is urban combat operations.
So let me ask you this. The reports are that Vectis drone strikes, again, this is an American company, operating drone strikes inside of Haiti, has killed 559 people and 11 children. This is an American company. We've been very careful about introducing American forces into Haiti because of the blowback that it has had against America's reputation and our interests in the region. But this is an American company that is killing hundreds of people. Under the Arms Export Control Act, the State Department is required to license the export of defense articles or military services. So did the State Department issue a license to Vectis Global to export defense services to Haiti?
The State Department has issued licenses for anyone who meets the law in terms of the regulatory and statutory policies that apply for the export.
But just answer I respect you, but answer my question.
Yes.
The State Department has issued a license.
Yes.
So were you involved in the issuance of that license?
No.
Can you speak to the consideration given for the indictments brought against the prior companies run by Mr. Prince for violating arms exports, for the massacre that happened under his leadership in Iraq? This obviously should have relevance to whether this company is allowed to operate in Haiti and whether there will potentially be blowback against the United States, as there was with respect to Mr. Prince's other private military companies operating in other conflict areas.
Senator, you will respect that I cannot use this opportunity to indict Eric Prince or any of his various companies. Also, any licensing that's done, I'm going to have to refer you to the Political Military Bureau at State Department because that's their area of expertise and responsibility. It doesn't happen through the U.S. Embassy. However, I will offer you a counterfactual. Can you imagine how the situation with regard to security and stability would be different if we didn't have people with experience contributing to this fight on behalf of the Haitian government? I can assure you that if we didn't have people who brought the expertise to it, to be able to fight at night and to be able to introduce other variables into this equation, the whole situation, and one mentioned by several of your colleagues here, state collapse, we would be much closer to that nasty precipice than we are at the moment. So let me be clear, I don't carry a torch for this outfit, but I have to offer you my best professional counsel, which is precisely that, which is that we would be in a situation that is that is much worse than we're in at the moment.
Well, with all due respect, that is the argument that was made to us regarding the presence of black water inside Iraq, that we would not be able to maintain security without them, and that we were naive to criticize the presence at that scale of a massive American military contractor. It ended up in the massacre of Iraqis, which severely damaged our ability to carry out our mission inside that country, provided impetus for the rise of a dangerous terrorist group that ended up killing thousands of civilians and draining the American treasury. So I hear your caution, but it sounds eerily familiar to one that got us wrapped up into a dangerous, long conflict in the Middle East. I hope that as our point man on the ground, you are careful about expanding the role of any private military contractor that ultimately, whose actions are ultimately going to accrue not just to their reputational detriment, but to ours as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Your points are acknowledged, Senator.
Senator Murphy, I understand your point of view. I am not here to debate you at all, but I think you're exaggerating what took place to some degree in Iraq by saying a severe massacre which led to the long-term stability. What took place from someone that comes from somewhat of that world. But I do respect your opinion and what you're trying to get to. But Ambassador Wooster's right. What's our options? Who are we going to put in place? Are we going to commit troops to it? There's private contractors that have been put in place through almost all of our recent conflicts we have had because of certain restraints we may put on ourselves or certain things that we need assistance with because we just don't have the personnel to do it. But they all should be held within reasonable liability and responsibility that represents the nature that the United States represents.
Let me just give, Mr. Chairman, let me just give you credit for having this hearing, right? Because this is an appropriate opportunity to talk to the administration about an issue that, we may have differences of opinion on, but are important questions of American foreign policy. So thank you for convening the hearing so we can have this discussion.
Right, absolutely. How long has Eric Prince been working in Haiti?
Senator, I'm not sure. Again, that contract is with him and the Haitian government. I don't know the answer.
Right, but it's way before this current administration.
Again, I can't give you a dispositive response.
I asked Mr. Holmes, who also is the CEO of Caribbean Security Group, because I know we've had this conversation. Eric Prince has been working in Haiti for how many years now?
I think it's somewhere around a year.
Okay. So a question that I do have for maybe both you guys, I'd like both y'all's opinion on this because I think you come from a different perspective. Which countries exert the most influence in Haiti, both positive and negative, and what role is the PRC playing in this? I'd like both y'all's opinion on this.
Thanks, Okay, in terms of countries that exert influence, no one compares. It's a little bit like my response on humanitarian assistance. Nobody compares in terms of influence on Haiti. No one compares to the United States. So there's a history we all know with France. There are histories with various others. They live on the same island as the Dominican Republic, so think, if you will, of conjoined twins. They do share that same geographic space, but without question, Senator, the United States has the most significant influence there.
What role is PRC playing?
The PRC has a commercial office that they have established in Haiti. They don't have much in the way of their signature presence. In fact, I have seen no signature presence in terms of the things that we're so used to seeing them about worldwide. So, for instance, the construction of railroads, mines, roads, ports, these sorts of things. We do not see those underway. We are not aware that such contracts are being entertained, certainly not between them and the government.
Mr. Holmes?
Certainly, I'd agree that the U.S. plays a predominant role. Canada and French also are prevalent, but Taiwan has played a significant role in Haiti as well. It's important to know that I believe Haiti is one of 12 states that formally recognizes Taiwan. And so there's significant interest there for the PRC to upset that. And we know that as part of the charm offensive over the last 7 years, certainly Haiti has been targeted to that. What's also noteworthy is that there's certainly cases of Haitian politicians openly courting Chinese investment and posturing for anyone who wants to come in to act in whatever's in the best interest of Haiti, including swapping their relationship with Taiwan for the PRC.
So just to conclude the hearing, I think what we have taken from this most of all is, we've talked about a range of topics, but first and foremost, we got to draw in stability to be able to get the foreign aid in. And I think there's some work to be done in that. Ranking Member Schatz made a good point. Where do we need to direct the money? How do we need to do that? The size of force matters. I think, Mr. Holmes, you made a good point on the fact of how big Haiti is versus New York City, and the amount of force they have versus what Haiti is realistically supposed to secure with. So I think we do need to take a deep dive into this, and Ambassador, we'd love to work with you and figure out what we need to do, because I think all of us can agree we want Haiti to be able to stand up on their own, and we know this isn't going to happen tomorrow. I've spent multiple trips in Haiti, spent quite a bit of time down there, invested personally into Haiti, years past. And it is not an easy challenge. They have a dark past and hopefully a bright future, but it takes all of us working together and maybe taking a different approach. We want to see that happen. So thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I ask
Absolutely.
Ambassador Wooster a question not related to Haiti,
sure.
but on an issue that I know you care about?
Okay.
Ambassador, I know you've spent a fair amount of time in Syria, in the Middle East, and currently there is an opportunity there for, and they're dealing with some of the same issues in Haiti in terms of stability and security. Do you have any observations about the current effort to integrate the SDF and the Kurds into the central government, and what those challenges are and how we can support that effort?
Senator Shaheen, I'm afraid I have an unsatisfying response